So we're building this group in Louisville based on where we live, what we might do for work, what we might do outside of work, where we find connection. And we've been asking questions to this group for the past couple of years. And one of the things that we asked the group was, in a word, what's something that challenges your sense of pride about Louisville? And here's what comes up. This comes up when we ask what challenges us as a city, what we need to do a little bit better about, our biggest fears about Louisville. Some of you who aren't from here, LMPD is our police department, JCPS is our school district. All of these words are about what divides us, and division is always sort of that main word that comes up. We also asked this same group, in a word, what's something that makes you proud about Louisville? And I loved this. Here's what comes up. That word belonging is up there, which is obviously relevant to what we've been talking about these past several days. So is diversity. The word immigrants is on there, friendliness, that we're welcoming. This is that question that I asked you all to answer. Just yesterday, we asked this group, and it was just based on being a part of this the last couple of days. We asked, what place in Louisville makes you feel like you belong? And then we asked the flip side of that, what place in Louisville almost sends the message of the opposite? Some of the places where people feel at home, feel like they belong, are the parks like Lauren mentioned. People mentioned Shawnee and Cherokee specifically. They mentioned the Iroquois Park Overlook, the Ali Center. They mentioned this place where we are today, the Kentucky Center. They mentioned the Belvedere, which is outside of this place. If you see the sign about how the Belvedere wants to change and be the heart of this community and welcome more of us, that was mentioned. The Big Four Bridge. Hannah Drake mentioned that, among other people. She spoke the opening night. It was beautiful. She said, it's fitting that the bridge is a literal connector, which is needed in this country. The opposite side, people mentioned the jail. Somebody said any parking garage that's on the sidewalk. People said the Bowman Field DMV. Somebody said most any country club. That person said, my husband is Jewish, and remembers when Jews were not welcome at any country clubs. Somebody answered the opposite sort of the Big Four Bridge. This is wonderful. If you live in Louisville, you might get this. They said, where they don't feel welcome or belonging, they said that weird concrete former restaurant at the base of the Big Four Bridge. You know which one I'm talking about, Josh. It really makes me laugh. This next thing I'm going to share with you, I want to be clear that among all the data that you've seen these past several days, the Harvard and Yale and Virginia educated amazing scholars, I am not that. I ate 38 cheeseburgers in 30 days, okay? And by the way, that's relevant because the best is at the Holy Grail, which is in a former church. But even though this might not meet the scientific rigor that some of the other amazing presenters shared, we're going to see how we answered this. This morning, there's the question we asked you, how long does somebody have to live in Louisville to be considered a true Louisvillian? Said you have to be born here, 10-ish years, 5-ish years. As soon as they feel like one, this is just sort of funny. If you live here, they start giving directions based on bygone landmarks. Or the last one, they start pronouncing it Louisville, which is, for me, how I felt like I belonged when I called people from out of town working on a story. I'd say, I'm from Louisville Magazine. They'd say, what? Say, oh, Louisville. So are we able to quickly show how these results? Okay. So there we go. So this group, there we go. So the most common answer was as soon as they feel like one. That was not me who answered that, so whoever that is, come up to me. They start pronouncing it Louisville. And then someone said 5-ish years. Again, not a ton of us, but it gives a nice little sense of the room. And this next slide shows the citywide group that we're building. We know that we need more people to be a part of this group. At the end of this discussion, we will invite more of you to join us. But here's how it looked when we asked the citywide group. So that was 30% of us who said, as soon as they feel like it. 19% said you have to be born here. Another 19% said about 10-ish years. And what's fascinating to me is that when you combine those, I mean, that's almost 40% of our city, and you can see how the other parts of the pie chart ended out. We can lose that slide. I want to start there because we all heard the applause. I'm not surprised that this wonderful festival and the people who attend it do say, as soon as you're here. I asked Galen when you got here how your father would answer, and he said, the very moment they arrive. Karina, you said the same. I wonder when you see something like this, what does that say about this place that you call home?
Well, as a Latina Louisvillian, I have never felt otherwise since the very first day I arrived. There is something about Louisville, the hospitality, but also the complexities that makes us who we are. Louisvillians in general are very hospitable. If you are walking down the street or you go in the elevator, somebody tells you about the weather, or they tell you, oh, did you see what happened in the news? Or they say, oh, I love your dress. So I think that there are these pieces, but also the way that we look at each other. I've been in this city for almost 32 years in January. And even though I have faced racism and discrimination, but also at the same time, I have experienced the beauty of Louisville itself. How I have been grown as a professional, as a person, as a human in this environment that I call home, and where I decided to have my babies and teach them and guide them for them to feel very proud to be Latino Louisvillians just like I am.
How would you answer that, Nima?
Oh, sorry. I think it's an interesting question. I think I was one of the only ones that talked about the landmarks, because that's when I felt like a Louisvillian, when you start referring to the old Bacons or, the building, the concrete building. But I will say that it sparked another thought in me that once you become a Louisvillian, you are a Louisvillian for life. You might move away, you might be traveling around the country, around the world, but you will always, always be a Louisvillian at heart. And I have seen that in many discussions from Kentuckians and Louisvillians who even maybe lived here a brief time. So I think that's a fascinating testament to our city.
Pastor Zavala and Galen, what made you say when I asked you that this morning from the day you arrived?
Yo parto de que la tierra es la casa donde habitamos todos los humanos.
I kind of come out of the view that the earth is the house that all humans inhabit.
Y los humanos hemos tratado de poner fronteras, límites para cuidar lo que creemos que nos pertenece.
And humans have created these arbitrary lines and limits to try and protect what we believe belongs to us.
Y como habitante de la casa que se llama tierra,
And as inhabitants of the house, it's called earth.
donde quiera que yo voy,
Doesn't matter where I go,
me siento que soy habitante de ahí.
I feel that I am an inhabitant of that place.
Bishop, last Saturday I was on a long walk in one of our parks that we all love here, thinking about the questions to ask. And I was listening to an interview with a Louisvillian, which is, I think, the only connection why I bring this up. It was the actress Jennifer Lawrence. And she talked about the dark moment that a lot of us find ourselves in this country, and how she looks back, and that's sort of the crystal ball. And she said something that I just loved, and I thought it was relevant. She said, I feel like we're all kind of fighting over what it means to be an American right now. And I wonder how you would answer that question.
We wrestled with that question some time ago, and it was, first, what does it mean to be an American, and even what does it mean to be Catholic. But it is not an easy question to answer. It's a good question, but it's not easy. It is not an easy question. I would say that to be an American, you had to embrace the values, obviously, of this great nation. And first, you had to have a love for this nation, love. One of the first songs that I started to kind of understand was America the Beauty. This talks about the beauty of nature, the beauty of this country, but above all, I forgot if he mentions the people, but it is the people, the beauty of the people, the diversity of this nation. And I think this nation, from the very beginning, it was a very diverse nation. The Native Americans, they were diverse, and then the people who have come to this country and built this great nation has been very diverse. So I will say that, to be an American, you had to have that openness to diversity. You had to cherish the traditions that the people bring and that make the United States a nation that welcomes, that embraces, and that integrates everyone who comes here.
Nima, how would you answer that question about what it means to be an American?
I mean, that's a huge question. That's a huge question right now. I think America as a country has a very long history of people coming here from other places and building it and refining it and shaping it. But we have a very short memory of all of that work and all of that building and all of those contributions that came before. And I think in this moment, what we have to do is just remember our own past. Remember what we have done that's good, that brought us here, and try to avoid or forget the things that keep trying to divide us. And there is an intentionality in the division. And I think that's also historically been a part of our fabric, an unfortunate part of it, but it is still there. And I think it's up to each of us to overcome that urge to look at any one of us as other than all of us. Because once we do that, we have seen the greatest atrocities you can imagine in this country and around the world. And as soon as you take that step in thinking of any one of us as other than ourselves, we start down that path. And it's a terrible path, and it never ends well. So I think what we have to do is just remember the things that make us Americans, the things that make us feel like Americans, because it will be similar. It will be the beauty of diversity. It will be the understanding that this is a place where anybody can come and make a life for themselves and their families still. There's still a Constitution. There's still an America. There are still our founding principles. They still exist. And we need to just remember and hold fast to those values and those ideals.
Pastor Zavala, this morning when we were having coffee, you mentioned thinking about why people come to this country. And I'm wondering if you could, I told you to save it for the discussion, but if you could talk about that.
La realidad de este país es que es diverso.
The reality of this country is that it's diverse.
También es la realidad de que tratamos de esconder esa realidad.
It's also true that we try to hide that diversity.
Y la gente que viene se desliza por todos lados de esta casa que se llama tierra.
And the people who come here are pushed out from every corner of this house we call Earth, from wherever they come from.
Lo hace porque las acciones de un lado y otro provocan que la gente se mueva.
They do it because actions coming from one place or another provoke that movement.
Eso es natural, la migración ha ido y venido siempre.
That's natural. Immigration has come and gone always.
Pero los límites que hemos establecido provocan que esa naturalidad de la migración no se produzca.
But these artificial limits that we've created, these borders we've created, have made it so that this natural process of movement doesn't happen.
los del norte de la tierra, para satisfacer nuestra ambición y nuestra comodidad, extraemos los recursos del sur de la tierra.
Those of the global north, to satisfy our wants, have made use of extraction of the people from the people of the global south of their resources.
Así que religiosamente hablamos de pecado. Nuestro pecado es el pecado de ellos de cruzar la frontera es nuestro pecado.
So religiously, we talk about sin, and if we want to say that they have committed this sin of crossing this artificial limit, this border, that really is our sin.
Entonces, lo que yo animo a la gente aquí en Estados Unidos o a cualquier parte donde vivimos cómodamente es que hagamos conciencia de que el pecado de ellos, de los que cruzan fronteras, rompiendo reglas que hemos creado por nuestro egoísmo.
And so what I try to tell people here in the United States or wherever it is that someone has the privilege of living comfortably is that when someone breaks these rules that we've established that kind of protect our own ego,
Que reconozcamos nuestro pecado
that we recognize that that they were pushed to do it because of our sin.
y seamos personas que le damos la bienvenida a esta gente,
And let us be people that give a warm welcome to those folks
que son buenas gentes en la mayoría.
who are good people in their vast majority.
Thank you for sharing that. Karina, thank you. For a second here, I wanted to kind of root this discussion in our city. And I wanted to ask you, what's something about this complex world of belonging and immigration in our city that those of us here this morning would probably find surprising, but because of the nature of the work you do, because you're in that world, you don't find surprising, or maybe don't find it surprising anymore?
Well, 30-something years ago, when I arrived, the immigrant community, the Latinx community in itself was very, very small. So we knew each other very easily. But through the years, more people were arriving. Now, with the current political situation, and please hear me, I am not talking about politics, I'm talking about the implications of us as people. We have come to realize that the anti-immigrant rhetoric, not only in the country, in the state, in the city, doesn't have anything to do with people being criminals. It has to be done on how you are perceived, the color of your skin, your accent, who that person thinks you are, or what the system thinks that you are. So something that we don't know in our city is that 15 minutes away from where we are right now, families are being separated. We don't know that 5 minutes that way, 5 minutes that way, people are coming to their regular check-ins and just with no due process have been taken to detention. And Nima is an immigration attorney and can attest how families are being separated, kids are being left behind. In the city of Louisville, in the state of Kentucky, in March, 83 people were detained. Most of them were from Louisville, and 17% were found that were criminals, and their crimes were not to have registration, not to have a driver's license, or maybe they didn't stop for 3 seconds at the stop sign. So those are the things that cannot be talked about. Just by me saying this right now, I am putting myself in danger. Because the America that most of us in this room know is not the America that I know. It's not the America that the community that I am so privileged to accompany knows. Because not knowing kids, not that when kids don't know if they're gonna find their parents when they go home, that is horrible. If we look at the data of JCPS of our school district, we have the numbers of truancy in the immigrant community have gone up, not because families don't want to send kids to school. Kids don't want to go to school because they don't know if they're gonna come home or they don't know if they are never gonna see their parents. And those are, secrets that everybody knows, but it is so scary. I'm usually asked this question, what is happening out there? Why don't people come forward? Just by the fact of speaking up and telling this story, this could mean, we don't know if God forbids, but we don't know if tomorrow you read in the news, Karina Barillas was picked up, even if I am a US citizen. Again, it doesn't have anything to do with being a criminal or not, even if I'm a US citizen. It has to do on how I'm perceived or the things that I'm sharing with you all this morning.
Nima, I wonder if you can think of a story from your perspective as an immigration attorney, a story, an anecdote, a conversation that has really stuck with you about how much has changed so far this year.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many stories, and they're all stories of injustice and fear and chaos. As Karina mentioned, if she gets picked up, you may read about it in the paper, but the fact is that you won't read about anything in the paper. You will never know about any of this. I get calls all the time, and by the way, from all across Kentucky. And one of the stories I'll share with you is a very recent example of a farmer who had a person that he relied on for 30 plus years to run his farm, and that is not unique. That is very common. I've heard from people all over the state about individuals that they know, they go to church with, they work with, who are good people. And what they thought when they voted was that this administration, and I'm not being political, this is just what was out there in the public record, was going after criminals, was going after gang members, was going after terrorists, the worst of the worst of the worst, and quickly realized that that's not the case. They're going after good people, trying to raise their families. And this individual was driving home. He had a serious medical emergency with one of his close family members. He had gone to his church to pray with his church group for his family, and was driving back to the farm and was picked up because there was something wrong with his taillight. Not speeding, not violating any laws, like not even a speeding ticket. And was taken to jail. So a lot of this is happening in our local jails, and that's also something we're not realizing. By the way, all of this, all of the $177 billion going towards detention and removal are our dollars. We're paying for this to happen every single day, and we need to be far more aware and far more vigilant about how those dollars are being spent, because it's our jails that are taking care of these people, or taking in these people and holding them without due process. There's no right to an attorney, there's no right to a phone call, because immigration violations are civil, not criminal. So we're saying these are criminals because they're here unlawfully, but that's not a crime. It's a civil violation because it's a matter of having the right paperwork. And by a show of hands, how many people in this room can prove right now that they're a citizen? That you're a citizen. Do you have anything on you? Your driver's license doesn't count. I have started carrying my passport around, yeah. I advise clients to carry documents, and I'm getting off track, but
this is not off topic at all.
It is so terrifying for people to just go to the grocery store, go to school, and part of the reason for that is that day one actions also by this administration rescinded something called a sensitive locations memo, which means that they don't do immigration enforcement action in schools, in hospitals, in churches. All of that's fair game now. And it doesn't matter. You can be on the street and picked up and put into a detention machine that you will never potentially get out of, because we have also expanded expedited removal. We have created third country agreements, places where people have never been that they're going to be deported to. They don't speak the language, they have no family. All of this has been put into place. It's all happening right now. And you may or may not read about it in the paper, but that's not enough. That's not enough, is in reading the paper and being outraged. This is a horrible, horrible violation of human rights, of civil rights, of our identity, however you want to frame it. This is not who we are as a city. This is not who we are as a country. But that person was held in jail, no crime, no nothing. Those folks didn't know what to do. They thought they had a duty to call ICE. This person wasn't even on the list because he'd never been in the system. We had to get an attorney to file what's called a habeas petition because there was no paperwork. There was no warrant, there was nothing. He was being told he had to be kept for 14 days, for 48 hours, for 72 hours. He ended up being in jail for no reason for about a week and a half before that habeas petition was granted, thankfully. And he's now out, not detained, but he has to report to immigration court. And of course, people are being picked up at immigration court when they try to show up and plead their case. And that is not a system designed for justice. That is not a system designed for fairness. You don't get a right to even plead your case anymore. And so it was really disappointing in Louisville, especially when we decided to comply with the ICE detainer command that we received. I mean, this is something that was requested by about 50 jurisdictions around the country. We were the only ones that capitulated and complied. And what that does, why does it matter? It's difficult because these concepts are very technical and nobody is expected to understand what that means. But what it does mean is that a person can be held in jail or in a facility for 48 hours after whatever they were sent in there is resolved. So you go in for a DUI, you go in for a charge, maybe it's dismissed an hour later, you can still be held for 48 hours at this point because we're agreeing to comply with these ICE detainers. It's a request. There's no obligation for any jurisdiction to do it, but we have agreed. And what that means is if you're picked up for a traffic violation, if you're just going for it could be anything. It could be anything at all. And you will be held for 48 hours, potentially moved to a detention facility. They're moving people primarily to Texas and Louisiana, whether or not they have any connection to those states. Again, these are run by private prison companies. There is no accountability, there is no oversight. You may have read reports in the news about policymakers and lawmakers and elected officials trying to go into one of these facilities and not being allowed in because it's private property, even though we are paying for it. We are paying for those congressionally mandated detention facilities and the 100,000 beds that have been mandated every year, the quotas that are trying to be filled. We're paying for all of that, and there is no accountability to us. There's no accountability to families. There's nothing. So children whose parents have been picked up are just left. And where will they go? Are they going to our foster care system? Are they able to find a relative to live with? This is happening here in our city. And it is surprising to me that in a city like Louisville, which has a high refugee resettlement population, which has a high immigrant population, including secondary migration from other cities and states, because we are a welcoming city, or at least we call ourselves a welcoming city. We foster this culture of belonging and inclusion, and we say the right words, and then we comply with this unnecessary and unjust request. And I am surprised, I'm shocked, I'm disappointed because that's not who I think we are. And not enough people know what any of the implications are of these seemingly small and minor actions that are being taken. But we all need to be held to account, and I think that is a critical moment and a critical action that we all need to take here.
Yes, Karina, and then I have a question for you, Bishop.
I would like to add something. So Nima just asked, who has with them this morning something that proves that you are a U.S. citizen? Some of us raise our hands. Your real ID doesn't count. Your driver's license doesn't count, right? Like a couple of us still raise our hands. Yes, we have our passport with us at all times. The ones that didn't raise their hand, if ICE comes through that door right now, please raise your hand if you think that ICE will come to you and will ask you if you are a U.S. citizen. And I am raising my hand. Now, for the ones that didn't raise their hand, why didn't you? Exactly. So those are the things that are not being said. Because again, how do you know I am not undocumented? How do you know I am a U.S. citizen? How do you know we are U.S. citizens, right? It's about racial profiling. And that is the secret that everybody knows, but that no one wants to talk about it because it is very dangerous.
By the way, the Supreme Court has now said racial profiling is fine. So it's completely legal.
Yep.
They said that if they want to go in and based on the language you're speaking, or if they have some, they don't even need proof. If they have some reasonable suspicion that you're undocumented or you're here unlawfully, which I don't know how you tell that by looking at a person. But.
Bishop, we talked about this a little bit earlier. You came straight from the Conference of Bishops, where collectively you released a statement, a strong statement in support of immigration. And when I read about it, your colleague, who I mentioned this morning, Bishop Seitz, took 100 letters to the Pope that were written to him from immigrants, from refugees, from people who want something different. I'm wondering if you can tell us if you've received those types of letters, or more specifically, what I think is interesting is that the four of you up here, in Garland too, people seek your wisdom. And I'm wondering how the nature of those conversations, in the form of letter or in person, has changed this year. The advice you're giving, how is it different now?
Thank you. Yes, we issue, first of all, we issue that statement. This is a statement after 12 years of the last one that was done collectively. This statement came about. By the way, some of us thought that it was not strong enough, but it is what it is, and it is strong enough, I would say, to convey a clear message that the church is walking with immigrants, that we are concerned, that we are saddened, that we are opposed, to what is happening. And yes, Bishop Seitz, he's the Bishop of El Paso, Texas, and he's the chair of the Committee for Migration, brought all these letters. And the Holy Father, being an American, understands very well the situation, and he's very supportive of what the bishops, are doing. And one of the things that he has asked us is precisely to speak up for those who do not have a voice. And then, yes, we are all receiving letters, phone calls. I have been meeting with people, especially from one parish that has been heavily affected. And what they express is that sense of fear you were talking about. Relatives or themselves having been detained. I mean, some were detained and then they were released precisely because they had the right documents. But it was sometimes they had to spend many days or even weeks in prison, knowing that they had a permit to work and things like that. But the families, we had a meeting and they came to express their own fears and the challenges that they are facing, and it is a widespread fear. As we said already here, it's not only the immigrants, but especially the children. The children are being very much affected. There is a collateral damage in a way, and it's going to stay in this generation of immigrants. Believe me, it's not. I said in one of the meetings, it's like a hurricane. You go to parts of Louisiana after 10, even more years of a hurricane, you still see the effects. It takes time for people to rebuild the cities and the towns. And so for us, it's going to also take a lot of time to rebuild confidence, trust in this nation, even in the system. because we're trying to build law-abiding people. But what about if you are detained once you appear in court? I mean, what's the message that they are sending?
Right.
That we should be running from the police? You know, that we should be hiding? So then we'll be saying you didn't appear in court. The other important thing is, you know, people are afraid of just reporting crimes. So many people are becoming targets of crime, criminal activity. So this idea that we are going to make the town safer is not happening. It's not real. It's not real. So yes, people come to me and to priests, you know, because they find the support and the pastoral accompaniment. Perhaps we cannot solve their problems, but we are there. Just the other day, somebody called me, Father, can you come with me to court? I have the court tomorrow. And then I say, I'm sorry, I have a big funeral tomorrow, so I cannot go, and that's going to take the whole day. So I call a priest, and the priest said, well, you know, I have gone to court with people, and it seems like the outcome is the same. I said, it doesn't matter if the outcome is the same. What is important is that person feels accompanied. That person doesn't feel alone. And that is something that we all can do. You know, not only the clergy, but we all can do that.
Pastor Zavala, can you give, real quickly, there's about 80,000 immigrants in Louisville. One projection is that could almost double by 2040. I don't want to get too much in the weeds with numbers up here. I know it's sometimes hard to grasp that. But Pastor Zavala, I'm wondering, in your congregation, can you give us a sense of what do they do for work? What are their concerns about going about their day-to-day? Specifically with like the jobs that they're doing here, the contributions they're trying to make here.
La cuestión es hacer leyes amables a esa naturalidad de la migración.
What's important is to make laws that you know, recognize the naturalness of immigration.
Como que los humanos tengan que cruzar fronteras, como cruza la mariposa monarca, no se le pide papeles.
That human beings be able to cross borders the way that the monarch butterfly does. They don't ask papers of the butterfly.
Leyes amables.
Friendly laws.
Pero como eso no se está dando, lo que tenemos es gente que cuando salen los papás a trabajar, sus niños tienen ansiedad.
But since we don't have those laws, when parents go out to work, the children, of course, are left with that anxiety.
Las personas me dicen, Pastor, ¿puede usted poner mi carro a su nombre?
People tell me, Pastor, could I put my car in your name?
O Pastor, ¿usted podría ser el que se hace cargo de mis hijos si me deportan?
Pastor, could you take care of my children if I'm deported?
¿Qué voy a hacer si la policía me toca la puerta de mi carro o de mi casa?
What do I do if the police are knocking on the door of my house or of my car?
¿Debo abrirle?
Do I open it?
Pastor, ¿qué pasaría si me deportan? Allá a mí me quieren matar de donde yo vine.
Pastor, I don't know what to do if I end up being deported. There are people back in my home country who want to kill me.
Pastor, acompáñeme a la corte porque tengo mucho miedo.
Pastor, please accompany me to court because I'm very scared.
El salario ya no me ajusta porque ahora la renta vale el doble.
My pay is no longer sufficient because now rent is doubled for me.
El jefe no me pagó mis 15 días de trabajo, pero no quiero acusarlo porque tengo miedo de estar ante una corte.
My boss didn't pay me for my last 2 weeks of work, but I'm too scared to bring forward any claim against him because I don't want to have to show up to a court.
Alguien me chocó y él tuvo la culpa, pero yo preferí irme porque no ando papeles.
Someone crashed into me and it was their fault, but I preferred to leave because I don't have papers.
Colin, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, sure.
What are the conversations like that you're having with your friends?
Oh, well, I mean, I exist in circles that are, I think, pretty aligned with the views of people. It depends on what friends, right? I work at an Amazon warehouse, so in that context, the overwhelming majority of the people that work there are Spanish-speaking immigrants, many of whom are Cuban and or have some asylum or legal status through that asylum system. But because there's been, so much uncertainty, conversations with friends in that context are one thing, right? People are very aware of fears. They might have family in Miami that have been deported, stuff like that. But then, I exist in this other world of, friends who are natural-born American citizens. I wasn't born in this country, but I am a natural-born citizen because my mother's a citizen. The conversations there are, there is a lot of concern, the way that folks in this room have concern, but it's one thing to kind of see that reality unfolding and the kind of visceral fear that people have, and another thing to read about it or to see a video about it or something. It's just, so the conversations are good and people are becoming more aware, but it's going to require people being willing to put themselves on the line and to show up. If people aren't showing up, if they just say, "Oh, that's too bad that that's happening. Good luck, but that's too bad," then that's not. Then we will all just be passive participants in this atrocity. We'll just observe it. But it was not. It is never an excuse to say, "I knew what was going on and I felt bad about it." You have to do something.
I glanced at my watch. I know we don't have a ton of time. I want to sort of end kind of on a solution-based thing. But Bishop, I wanted to ask you something. Everybody here, to varying degrees, knows what it feels like to feel left out, to be excluded. I feel like it's a specific kind of pain and hurt, and I just wondered if you can comment on that. Why does being excluded, being made to feel like you don't belong, why does that hurt so much in the way it does?
Well, yes, because we have a natural desire to belong. That's how we were created, right? To be a community, to live in community, to share in a community. And obviously, if that is that inherited kind of need that we have of part of who we are is not fulfilled, then obviously we are going to feel like, yes, we don't matter. Our dignity as human beings is not recognized. So that's why it is so important to create communities that welcome, that protect, as Pope Francis said, that promote, that integrate, immigrants, and that is the work of all of us, So it is so important to create those spaces where people will feel at home. That is so important. And my motto, as a bishop, we select a phrase that will kind of help us guide our ministry. I chose, he walked with them. I mean, Jesus walking with the disciples of Emmaus. But that's just the beginning, walking with people. Because then the disciples of Emmaus went on and said to the stranger that has been walking with them, stay with us. Stay with us. So that hospitality, radical hospitality, opened up their eyes and they recognized Jesus. It was Jesus who has been walking with us. That's why, at the end of of the world at the last judgment, Jesus is going to ask us, I was hungry, you gave me to eat, or not gave me to eat. I was stranger, and you welcome me, or did not welcome me. So that's how radical hospitality is. So we all have that need of being welcome in the family, no matter who we are, and welcome in a church, in a faith community, welcome in a neighborhood, in a town, in a city, and welcome in a nation. So I would say it's just an inherited need that we have, just like breathing, eating, is part of who we are, community.
Karina, from the nonprofit perspective, at the magazine, we're really trying to understand these complicated worlds, all the different ways that you're connected to other parts of our city. A specific question I want to ask is, how has the flow of money through the system changed this year for maybe your nonprofit? And then Nima, I wonder if you could answer that too after.
It's sometimes for us as nonprofits, it is so difficult to explain that the work that we do is the financial cost in itself is higher of the investment that is being flown through us, because we are working, most of us, with no income at times, and how we are paying, our staff and the amazing teams that we have and we hire, are very low. We have seen impact on the flow of government funds that are being invested in the work that is being done, while we see the rise of need and anguish that our families face. Because again, something that I struggle sometimes in sharing with the community at large is that, yes, how wonderful the work that you are doing. All these poor people. Look at the immigrant community. Wow, look at the Derby. Look at how much our construction industry has grown, yard industries, restaurants here and there. But then we forget about the humanity of the people that are making this possible. So that's why I struggle, because it's beyond money. It is about believing, and please believe us, believing the struggle that we are facing right now. I think that just like New Americans and La Casita, we could use 10, 15, 20 more staff members for us to at least catch up with what is happening. But we, as immigrant women, as immigrant-led organizations, we have to prove more and beyond and work 10 times more than any other, so the community will believe the anguish of our people.
And you're saying that, Nima, I want to go to you with the same question, how the flow of money has changed. And I don't think I mentioned this, but you're also the founder of the New Americans Initiative. How have you seen money through the system change this year?
Yeah, and I'll talk about the money generally, right? We talked about how expensive it is and how much money was allocated in our budget and how that's all our taxpayer money going to things that I can't imagine anyone in this room agreeing with or supporting. At the same time, to fund that huge amount of money, that gigantic allocation to remove people from our communities, we're cutting things like SNAP benefits, we're cutting things like health care, food access, housing assistance for the poorest Kentuckians, citizens. Forget immigrants. They're here. They're seniors. They're children. There are disabled communities. Nobody's talking about that. To pay for this horrific agenda, we're taking food away literally from our children, from our grandparents. And I think that just needs to sink in, because part of the lack and cutting of nonprofit funding is that as well. It's our government we pay into it, and it is cutting the services that we all need. And I agree with Karina. I mean, such powerful work that she does in our community beyond just the families that she serves at La Casita Center. I mean, she's an ambassador for immigrants in Louisville and throughout Kentucky. New Americans Initiative was founded, to kind of blend my experience as an elected official and an immigration attorney. And the long-term goal is essentially to naturalize every eligible immigrant, get them registered to vote, and keep them engaged civically and electorally for the long term. This year, well, in my view, that's the only way we're going to get anything changed in Kentucky. Everyone else is already sort of entrenched in their camps. The only people that matter are young voters and new American voters, and those constituencies overlap. They are not engaged. They don't think there are anybody that represents them, anybody that speaks for them or their concerns. I mean, there are people in the younger generation that just have given up on ever thinking they'll own a home. They're not having children because they can't afford to have children. They can't afford daycare, they can't afford education. This is happening. I mean, these are decisions being made, and just think about the implications of all of that 10 years, 20 years down the line. So in the short term, of course, and by the way, I don't take a salary, and I'm not saying that to, in any other capacity except to say a lot of executive directors and a lot of leaders of nonprofits have made a lot of sacrifices this year because we have no idea what funding is going to look like. We have no idea what's going to be cut. We have no idea what avenues will remain open to us even now. So I made the decision not to back in January when everything was incredibly uncertain on all fronts, and I'm continuing not to, just to see how everything stabilizes. But the work has to continue. We have 2 paid staff, 1 legal director, who came on board in May 2024, and she single-handedly has organized legal assistance workshops to get people on a pathway to citizenship. We've served over 200 families, and we're working directly with International Rescue Committee to provide free legal services to the over 400 individuals that they have resettled that all need assistance with green cards. And so the need is dire, the need is urgent, because if these folks don't get their green cards, they're just as vulnerable as anybody that doesn't have any documentation. And they don't have anything to show that something is pending, that they're trying to do it the right way. And so the work is, and the families that Karina serves every day, I mean, they depend on La Casita for a variety of services, for food, for clothing, for some limited legal assistance. I mean, it is overwhelming, the need. And I think it is difficult for people that are outside of our communities to understand why it's important, what the needs are day to day, and how much benefit we all get from the work that's being done in the long term. You may not see it every day. You appreciate it. We like to talk about how great our nonprofits are doing, all the good work that we're doing, because, success has many parents, but failure is an orphan. And usually that's discussed in the sense of a project or a business, but we are failing and we're not talking about it because nobody wants to talk about anything but the good things that we're doing. And that is something that our city is better than. We are much better than that. And I think that we need to recognize all of the work that's being done by people that are making sacrifices every day, and we need to come together as a community to make sure that we weather this storm.
I think that was Owsley who came to my shoulder and said we were able to have 15 more minutes, which now I think is only about 7 more minutes. Is that right, Owsley, Lauren? Okay. I only have like 2 other questions, really. I'm realizing that in my slides, maybe one was skipped. If Ryan backstage or Alex, if someone could show, if not, it's okay, but if you could show that one slide, the results of the question we asked about what we asked this group we're building, what 1 or 2 countries were your ancestors from. So this word cloud up here, we asked this question and it just reflects that all of us are from somewhere. Some people opened up. A friend reminded me, Josh, if you ask questions to Black Americans, be careful, right? Like my ancestors didn't get a choice to come here. Several people, I've loved at all these sessions, people mention our parks that are named after the people who were here before us. People mentioned that, the Cherokee, the Shawnee, One person just simply said here. Somebody said Ukraine and Russia, which I found fascinating. And I just put this up here to invite you, if you don't see where you're from on there, let me know afterwards. I'm going to add it, and we'll keep adding to it. We know we need it to be even more diverse than that. Back to that idea of what do we do at the magazine if we were to follow this as a storyline. Let's just say over the next year, because I think sometimes if we think 10 years down the line or 5 years, it becomes a little bit abstract. And I'll start on the end. What potential points of progress, actual progress, do you think, I'll say Louisville for those of us from Louisville, and then Bishop, how you take the question, but like, where specifically do the people here, the people who lean forward, who want us to get a bit better as a city, as a nation, where should we focus our energy?
En los próximos años, ¿cuáles son las puntas de progreso que se pueden ver dónde se debe enfocar la energía de la gente en este cuarto?
Pastor Zavala, yeah.
Sí.
Por obvias razones, hacer leyes que sean amigables con la migración.
For obvious reasons, making laws that are friendly to immigration.
Es urgente eso. Yo creo que ahorita estamos viendo un momento bien estresante para la comunidad inmigrante.
It's an urgent thing. I believe right now we're seeing a very stressful time for the immigrant community.
Y yo he aprendido en mi vida que cuando las cosas se ponen difíciles, más cerca está lo mejor que viene.
And I've learned throughout my life that when things get difficult, that might be a signifier that the good things are coming.
Y yo creo en la gente.
And I believe in people.
En este momento creo que el pueblo estadounidense ha olvidado sus orígenes.
I believe that in this moment, the American people have forgotten their origins or their roots.
Cuando vemos esa slide, me pregunté, le pregunto al pueblo estadounidense, ¿cuándo se te olvidó que eras inmigrante?
After seeing that slide, I think of asking the question to the American people, when did you forget? When did you forget that you are an immigrant?
Ese es el camino de este país.
That's the path of this
Yo
country.
creo que tenemos que despertar de ese letargo en que hemos entrado.
We have to wake people up of that lethargy that we have entered.
Y el poder está en nosotros.
And the power is in us to do that.
Yo lo veo corto, el tiempo en que podemos redimir a la comunidad inmigrante.
I see it as us not having a lot of time on the clock to be able to redeem the immigrant community.
I want to again to invite us all and to invite my beloved Louisville community. Please believe us. Don't make us cry and create pity on you for us. So when we tell the stories, and even the stories that are not being told, are real. Our city is bleeding out of immigrant kids' tears. Please believe us. The second invitation will be go back and find who your ancestors are. And remember, if you are not a Native American or your ancestors were not brought into slavery, remember that your ancestors had to struggle to come here. Remember that in 1850 in the city of Louisville, 55% of the immigrants were German and were Irish, and they were murdered right here on 9th and Market. And my invitation is for you to reflect, are your ancestors proud of your immigration support right now? The ones that were murdered just for being immigrants and for being Catholic. That will be another reflection. And then please support the immigrant-led organizations. For us, this is our passion, our life. We belong to the communities that we are serving. This is not a job. This is our survival. If I don't do this work, and I don't teach my kids, Latinos, Louisvillians, to do this work, then what is going to happen to our community? And I know so many people like in Americana, in Adelante, New Americans, Backside, La Casita, The Route. I mean, I can mention the 17 nonprofits in the city and the few ones that are led by immigrants. I can tell that all of us do this work not because we're going to get financially rich, but because we believe in the American dream. Let us have that American dream. Please don't make us beg. Please support the work we're doing.
With the last 5 minutes, I want to get to this last question that I want to ask. It's related to what you said about remembering our ancestors. I just sort of love this question. I was reminded of it on, I forget which night, Valerie Kaur was on this stage, but she had us all close our eyes and picture behind us an ancestor who was sort of there at our back helping us, basically. And the question is related to that. And I'll start, we'll just go down the line and we'll end there. And the question is, what superpower would you want in your life right now that you think one of your grandparents possessed?
Quisieras tener en tu vida ahora que uno de tus abuelos tenía superpoder.
Yo tengo 4 abuelos que le llamo los 4 robles.
I have 4 grandparents that I call the 4 like upright trees. Oaks, yes, oaks.
Porque ellos vivieron un momento en el que por ambos lados mi familia junta a esas 4 abuelos, por el lado de mi mamá y mi papá. Y ellos vivieron una tragedia de que alguien mató a 5 personas, la hija de un lado y el hijo del otro lado de la familia.
They lived through a difficult period. These 4 grandparents of mine unite my mother's side and my father's side of the family, and they experienced a very difficult time where 5 members of the family were murdered very brutally.
Después de eso, esa tragedia, tenían la oportunidad de ellos vengar esa muerte.
After that tragedy, they had the opportunity to essentially exact vengeance for that killing against those who did the killing.
La policía les ofreció que hicieran lo mismo, quemarlos a los que habían hecho esa matanza.
The police who had captured the people who perpetrated this, where they burned these family members alive in their own house, they said, here, you can take them, burn them alive if you want.
Los 22 hijos se preparaban para vengar la muerte.
The 22 children of this group of grandparents were ready to exact that vengeance.
Pero ante esa tentación, mis 4 abuelos dijeron, no vamos a vengar la muerte.
But before that temptation, my 4 grandparents said, we are not going to do this.
Parecía tonto en ese momento,
Looked stupid to some in that
porque
moment,
lo correcto era vengarlo.
because they believed that the correct thing
Ellos
was to
dijeron, si hay
exact
una
vengeance.
ley que los castigue y le dejamos la venganza a Dios.
They said, if there is a law, let the law punish them, and if there is vengeance to be had, let God do it.
Gracias a esa acción de mis 4 abuelos,
Thanks to that action by my 4 grandparents,
cuando yo voy al pueblo,
when I go back to my hometown,
yo juego fútbol con familias, montón de familias.
I play football, soccer with tons of family.
Si nosotros nos envenenamos de odio contra los que nos están haciendo daño,
If we fill ourselves with poison against those and vitriol against those who are doing us harm,
no vamos a llegar a nada.
we will arrive at nothing.
Si los piel marrón agarran poder político
If us, the brown-skinned
y
people,
quieren
capture
resolver
political
con
power,
venganza,
and we try to resolve things with vengeance,
no vamos a llegar a ningún
we
lado.
will get nowhere.
Tenemos que ser diferentes.
We have to be different.
Esta casa que se llama tierra
This house that's called
es
earth
para todos
is for everyone,
y debemos crear reglas amables para todos.
and we must create friendly rules for all people.
Gracias a mis 4 abuelos.
Thanks to my 4 grandparents.
Thank you. Bishop, how would you answer?
I would say the care for creations. I grew up in a very, very small village of farmers, and people had a great sense of belonging to the land, so therefore they care for creation. My mom, she's almost 92 years old, and she still works in the farm. And she's so proud of growing food, corn, squash, beans. So I would say that, that is something that I wish I could do, as a bishop. I don't have time to garden. but I would say care for creation, that sense of belonging to the earth and that we need to grow our food and have a great respect for people who farm and who raise food.
Thank you for sharing that. Nima?
Yeah, I think the person, I guess the ancestor I would think of that comes first and foremost to mind is my grandmother, my father's mother, who possessed grace and just had a presence. I don't know if folks here have met anybody or have anybody in their lives like that, but she would just exude grace. And anybody that came near her in the same room just was calmed and quieted and folded somehow, even if they didn't know her, in that grace. I did not inherit that. And I try to remember in pretty much every situation I find myself how she would react. It is not easy, and sometimes I forget to remember how she would act, but that is somebody, that is an ideal that I aspire towards. And really all it boiled down to was knowing that this was a kind person. And so I think one of the things, we've talked a lot about the horrible things and just sort of the overwhelming badness that is occurring day by day, sometimes hour by hour. I think one thing that we can remember for each of us to do, that we all have within our capacity, is acts of kindness. And I don't mean that to be trite. I mean that very literally. Just when you encounter somebody, take that extra step to be kind, to say a kind word, to do a kind thing. It does not have to be a grand gesture. I'm an immigrant, but I recognize the immense privilege that I come from. We chose to come to Louisville so that my brother could attend the DePaul school. People were kind to us because we couldn't afford to pay that tuition, but there was kindness extended to us that allowed him to go to that school and get the education he needed. So we have seen the kindness in our own family and try to give it back as much as we can. But that's something every single one of us can do, is extend a brief moment of grace every day in any situation that we're in.
And Karina?
As someone that has survived incest, sexual abuse, from a mother that survived domestic violence and sexual abuse, from my grandmothers who also survived domestic violence, sexual abuse, for my great-grandmothers who not only survived sexual abuse and domestic violence and racism for being indigenous as well as Afro-Indigenous. I think that it is my duty to continue their legacy of survival. But this deep survival where I am no longer a victim and they are no longer the victims, but that I have the strength that comes from them to fight every day for what is just and what is right. And one thing that I'm carrying with me from my ancestors is that everything that around me could be horrible and bad, but no one can take away from me the joy of being who I am and where I come from.
Thank you all so much for being here.
So I wanted to share a little bit about the first song because it goes right with the theme. This is a song I wrote about a month ago. First, I should say I'm Christella. Hello. This is a song that I wrote about a month ago. I go to Louisville Presbyterian Seminary, and I'm taking pastoral care class. And they told us to take a headliner and do a response of care to it. So use that headliner and then how you would provide care to that group. And as an immigrant from Haiti, all of my assignments probably mention that I'm an immigrant. And I decided to use the headliner of families being separated by deportation or the fear that immigrants feel in this moment, whether they are legal or illegal. And so this is the song that I wrote called Comforts Me. And I invite you to listen and to hear the comforting words. What is a life looking over your shoulder, not knowing what the future holds? The grip of fear is suffocating. The dreams you once held close. No home to go, nowhere to turn to. No place to call your own. The empty promises of freedom, awaiting for new hope. Breathe, breathe. Just take a deep breath and breathe. Precious life of mine, gotta keep praying, praying for change to come. Gotta keep loving, gotta keep holding on. And even though I walk through the valley, I will not fear, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Presence in you, I find my peace. I'm safe here in your arms. Your love, it comforts me. I'm comforted by your presence in you, I find my peace. I'm safe here in your arms. Your love, it comforts me. I'm comforted by your presence in you, I find my peace. I'm safe here in your arms. Your love, it comforts me. Comforted by your presence, in you I find my peace. I'm safe here in your arms. Your love, it comforts me. is a song that Fred wrote. Would you stand with me? Would you pray with me that justice be done? For the world is a dangerous place. Oppression is here and it's growing each day. And it's more than one person can take. Let's pray like the scriptures that we be made whole, awaken to mercy and grace. Would you pray with me that justice be done? When the truth is a stranger, the world is a dangerous place. Would you stand with me that justice be done? For the world is a dangerous place. Oppression is here and it's growing each day. And it's more than one person can face. Let's stand like the scripture that we be made whole, awaken to mercy and grace. Would you stand with me that justice be done? When the truth is a stranger, the world is a dangerous place. Would you walk with me that justice be done? For the world is a dangerous place. Oppression is here and it's growing each day. And it's more than one person can take. Oh, let's walk like the scriptures that we be made whole, awaken to mercy and grace. Would you walk with me that justice be done? When the truth is a stranger, the world is a dangerous place. Would you sing with me that justice be done? For the world is a dangerous place. Oppression is here and it's growing each day. And it's more than one person can take. Let's sing like a scripture that we be made whole, awaken to mercy and grace. Would you sing with me that justice be done? When the truth is a stranger, the world is a dangerous place. Would you sing with me? Would you walk with me? Would you stand with me? Would you pray with me?
Lo voy a hacer en español. Gracias a mi hijo.
I'm going to do it in Spanish, thanks to my son.
Porque alguien me dijo a mí que aunque supiera un poco de inglés o bastante, que hablaba español porque ellos necesitan escuchar español.
Because someone once told me that even if I speak a little English, or perhaps even a lot, that it's important that I speak in Spanish because they need to hear me in Spanish.
Oremos.
Let's pray.
Gran Espíritu, fuerza creadora del universo, gracias por la vida y la diversidad que nos rodea.
Great Spirit, creative force of the universe, thank you for life and the diversity that surrounds us.
Gracias por el agua que corre en ríos y mares, por el viento que nos da aliento, por el fuego que nos calienta y por la tierra que nos sostiene.
Thank you for the water that flows in rivers and seas, for the wind that gives us breath, for the fire that warms us, and for the earth that sustains us.
Todo es tu regalo, y en cada detalle vemos tu amor, en el color de cada mariposa, en el aroma de cada flor, en la temperatura de cada estación.
Everything is your gift, and in every detail we see your love, in the color of each butterfly, in the aroma of each flower, in the temperature of each season.
Gracias por permitirnos disfrutar este entorno, nuestra casa, la tierra.
Thank you for allowing us to enjoy this environment, our home, the earth.
Perdón por el daño que hemos causado,
Forgive us for the harm we have caused,
por contaminar ríos, mares, por incendiar bosques, por destruir la tierra con egoísmo y ambición.
for polluting rivers and seas, for burning forests, for destroying the earth with selfishness and ambition.
Perdón porque alimentamos sistemas que justifican el extractivismo, arrancando recursos de un lado para saciar la ambición del otro.
Forgive us for feeding systems that justify extractivism, tearing resources from one place to satiate the ambitions or wants of another.
Hacemos reglas que solo buscan proteger intereses egoístas, olvidando que tu creación es para todos y todas.
We make rules that only seek to protect selfish interests, forgetting that your creation is for everyone.
Hemos cerrado los ojos ante la injusticia que expulsa a familias, que obligan a migrar, que convierten la vida en mercancía.
We have closed our eyes to the injustice that displaces families, that forces migration, and that turns life into a commodity.
Hoy venimos ante ti pidiendo fuerza, valor y gracia para cumplir tu voluntad.
Today we come before you asking for strength, courage, and grace to fulfill your will.
Ayúdanos a cuidar la vida, empezando por el microentorno donde vivimos, y a empaparnos de la alegría que provoca la diversidad humana, creación tuya.
Help us to care for life, starting with the microenvironment where we live, and to immerse ourselves in the joy that human diversity, your creation, brings.
Danos coraje para denunciar la injusticia y levantar la voz por quienes no la tienen, los inmigrantes, los pobres, los que sufren violencia y guerra.
Give us courage to denounce injustice and raise our voices for those who cannot, immigrants, the poor, those who suffer violence and war.
Escucha los clamores que se ahogan en las casas y en las fronteras.
Hear the cries that are stifled in homes and at borders.
Clamores como esto. Que el presidente gobierne para proteger a mi familia.
Cries like these ones. That the president would govern to protect my family.
Que el legislador haga leyes para cuidarnos.
That legislators would make laws to protect us.
Que el juez me deje quedarme más.
That the judge lets me stay here.
Que mi papá no lo agarre la migra.
That ICE doesn't arrest my father.
No me ajusta para pagar la renta.
That I can afford my rent.
Tengo miedo de ir a trabajar, pero no tengo de otra.
That I may not be afraid to go to work, although currently I have no choice.
Auxilio, me ahogo cruzando el mar.
Help me, I'm drowning crossing the sea.
Haznos sensibles al dolor y a la esperanza de quienes son expulsados de sus tierras, de quienes cruzan fronteras buscando vida.
Make us sensitive to the pain and hope of those who are expelled from their lands, of those who cross borders in search of life.
Que podamos ver humanidad en cada persona sin dejar de celebrar la riqueza de cada cultura y cada ser.
May we see humanity in every person while continuing to celebrate the richness of every culture and every being.
Une nuestros corazones a tu insistencia en amar para que juntos cuidemos la vida y la tierra que nos has confiado.
Unite our hearts to your insistence on love, so that together we may care for the life and the earth you have entrusted to us.
Todos podemos decir amén.
We can all say, Amen.
Hello. Hello. My name is Elena, and I am the artist in residence this year. First and foremost, I just want to express my deep, deep gratitude for everyone who sat with me. This was an experiment, and I didn't really know how it would work out, but in my feeling and with the feedback I received, I feel that we created a sacred moment of connection with every portrait. I wanted to share 2 examples of portraits that I've done and just sort of walk through the process. So as we sat down together, I first made a quick line drawing on transparent paper, and then afterward we traced the drawing and chose a colored background where whoever I sat with got to write what sacred belonging meant to them. And this process is not finished yet. We're just at the beginning, and I wanted to share a piece of my process. It's sort of like my sketchbook here. So I will be gluing these portraits together to create a tapestry of both faces and words combined. All these faces are going to be nestled together. Some words may be slightly hidden, but that's sort of the nature of ourselves. We have the parts that we see, the parts that are hidden, but everything belongs. And it's been such an honor to work on this project with you. I've gained clarity as an artist, as a human being. This was one of the most transformative experiences as an artist to work with you and receive your love. And thank you. And I'm so excited to build the larger piece. Like I said, this is just part of my sketchbook here. And it will be at the Interfaith Center. And thank you again. I express love and gratitude to you all.
There is a time to be alone. Each one of us a separate being of our own. And there's a time when we conspire to come together and unite our heart's desire to sing in one voice, to feel with one heart, to make a love choice. This is a fine art, to sing in one voice, to feel with one heart, to make a love choice. This is a fine art, to celebrate our differences and realize the gift it is to raise a joyous noise in one voice. There is a place that we can go inside the little private world we call our own. And there's a place we rise above. We unify and celebrate the way we love to sing in one voice, to feel with one heart, to make a love choice. This is a fine art, to sing in one voice, to feel with one heart, to make a love choice. This is a fine art, be one voice, to feel with one heart, to make a love choice. This is a fine art, to sing in one voice, to feel with one heart, to make a love choice. This is a fine art, to celebrate our differences and realize the gift it is to raise our joy. Yes, Lord.